There are times when you've done nothing wrong, offended no one, caused no conflict, and yet you notice people slowly pulling away, no longer trusting you, no longer treating you the same. They won't say it, but you can feel the coldness in their eyes, the distance they now keep. And you wonder, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you don't need to do anything wrong. Merely maintaining seemingly harmless bad habits is enough to make others lose respect for you little by little in silence. Respect doesn't vanish because of one big mistake. It often dissolves quietly through small, repeated actions. The things we dismiss as trivial are the very things that silently tell the world who we are. Stoicism doesn't teach us to seek validation from others, but to live with discipline, awareness, and responsibility for ourselves, because every action, however small, reflects our inner world. When you master yourself, you won't need to demand respect, you'll draw it effortlessly. So, which habits are quietly eroding your image in the eyes of others? Let's take a closer look. 1. Speaking ill of others. When you burn the bridge of trust, there's a paradox in modern life. The easiest people to talk to are often the hardest to trust. Not because they're malicious, but because they're too careless with their words. In a coffee chat, a casual message, or light-hearted talk after work, they unintentionally spread comments, opinions, and judgments about people who aren't present. At first, the listener nods along, entertained, but then a quiet thought arises. If they can speak that way about others, what might they say about me when I'm not around? In that very moment, trust begins to crack. Not because of the story itself, but because of how you chose to tell it. Not because someone was spoken of unfairly, but because the speaker is no longer seen as trustworthy. And the painful part is, you don't even realize it's happening. Gossip never just sticks to the person being talked about. It always reflects back on the speaker. You might think you're being insightful, relatable, or honest. But to the listener, you're showing that you can't be kind when someone's absent. And so, they begin to wonder, can I really trust this person? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. The first gate, is it true? The second, is it necessary? The third, is it kind?" Only when a word passes all 3 should it be spoken. But in reality, most so-called heart-to-heart conversations barely pass 1, if any, at all. Some might say, "But I mean no harm, I'm just sharing." Then ask yourself, sharing for what purpose? To unload feelings? To seek validation? To prove you're right and they're wrong? Whatever the reason, the result is the same. You've used someone else's reputation to cushion your own fleeting emotions. In the workplace, I once saw an employee who was energetic and highly skilled, yet always at the center of chatter. He didn't badmouth others directly, he merely recounted events, sprinkled with commentary, speculation, and humor. People still laughed, still invited him for coffee, but no one gave him real opportunities. No one trusted him with leadership, because somewhere deep down they wondered, if I fail in front of him, will that become tomorrow's story? Such a person isn't hated. They're simply kept at a distance, and that distance unspoken, polite but firm, is the most ruthless form of rejection. Stoic philosophy is not just about endurance or reason. It's about choosing to live by principles in even the smallest actions. Epictetus reminded us, don't let the tongue outrun the mind. Every word is an action, and every action forms a habit. When you routinely speak carelessly about others, you don't just hurt them, you train yourself to be someone without inner discipline. And without that discipline, you will never earn true respect. Because respect isn't about intelligence or sharp arguments. It's about trust. Being the kind of person others feel safe in trusting with secrets, vulnerability, even failure without fearing you'll turn it into a story. So how do you break this subtle habit? Start by listening to yourself. Each time you're about to speak about someone who isn't present, pause for 3 seconds. Ask, would I say this if they were here? If the answer is no, maybe it shouldn't be said. If someone tries to pull you into that kind of talk, you don't need to react harshly. Just smile and shift the topic. Or simply say, I think it's better if we don't talk about them when they're not here. That simple sentence doesn't just save the other person, it saves you from digging a silent grave for your own reputation. When you refuse to speak ill of others, you might not be applauded right away. But little by little, people will start to notice something different about you. They'll believe, this is someone I can trust. Not because you try to win their favor, but because your actions show you don't build your presence on someone else's weakness. Remember, what you say about others isn't just a description of them, it's a reflection of yourself. And the world remembers these reflections more than you think. Don't be the one who carries fire just to spread stories, because in the end, you'll be the one burned. Be the one who keeps the flame steady within, so your light not only guides you, but becomes the light others seek when they need truth, trust, and someone who won't turn another's pain into entertainment. 2. Passive aggression. When you expect others to read your mind, some conflicts don't start with yelling, but with a cold silence, a dismissive nod, a delayed reply full of hidden meaning, a sarcastic, wow, looks like you're having fun. These small gestures seem harmless, but destroy relationships faster than any outburst. They're a kind of poison, invisible, scentless, but deeply corrosive. I used to be that person. When I felt hurt, I didn't say it. I sent indifferent messages, avoided eye contact, used sarcasm to hide my disappointment. I thought I was preserving dignity, staying in control, but in truth, I was communicating through expectation, hoping the other person would just know, would sense, would be sensitive enough to realize I wasn't okay. And when they didn't, I got angry at them for not knowing. That's the most dangerous part of passive aggression. You don't say what you want, but you punish people for not guessing correctly. Stoicism teaches us that pain doesn't come from what others do, but from how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If something causes you pain, it's because you've allowed it to." In passive aggression, we not only allow it, we try to inflict that pain onto others without ever saying a word. This behavior often hides under a mask of politeness or self-respect. You don't yell or criticize outright, but you quietly build walls. You stay silent longer than usual. You highlight your busyness to make the other feel unimportant. You drop vague, half-true comments, and you feel mature for not getting mad when in truth you've just weaponized guilt in a subtler way. A Stoic never turns emotion into a trap. They don't play guessing games. They don't challenge others through silence. They choose clarity, integrity, and directness because they know. Truth may be hard, but ambiguity is what kills trust. In any relationship, personal or professional, passive aggression is never a solution. It doesn't make you understood, it makes you difficult to approach. It doesn't inspire others to try harder, it just exhausts them. And worse, if you repeat it long enough, people will stop trying to understand you altogether. They'll choose distance because it's safer. I remember a close friend. I once unintentionally hurt her with an offhand comment at a party. She didn't react. No anger, no confrontation. Just slower replies, postponed plans, polite small talk replacing real conversation. And I didn't understand what was happening until that friendship had quietly bled out. Not because I didn't apologize, but because I never got the chance. I didn't know when I went wrong. Passive aggression kills relationships by making others guess until their hearts grow tired, and no one can endure living in long-term uncertainty. Epictetus once said, "No one learns anything when they think they already know everything." When you expect others to understand without speaking, you shut the door on learning. You deny them the chance to listen and deny yourself the chance to grow. The truth is, no one can read your mind. And if you value a relationship, you must have the courage to say what you mean, even if it's uncomfortable. Only through honesty can others truly understand you, not through guesswork. Silent resentment is not strength, it's avoidance. But clarity, even when it hurts, is the highest form of respect. So what should you do when you catch yourself falling into passive aggression? First, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What do I want from them? And have I made that clear? If the answer is no, the first step isn't to wait, it's to speak. Speaking doesn't mean shouting, it means sharing calmly, with self-control. Speaking to connect, not to blame. For example, instead of sending a sarcastic message like, "I guess you have more important things now," try, "I felt left out when you didn't respond. Is something going on I should know?" A statement like that isn't weak. On the contrary, it takes courage, discipline, and emotional control, all traits Stoicism honors. Because in the end, you don't need people to guess you right. You need them to understand you clearly. And that only happens when you're willing to show up with real sorrow, real hopes, real wounds, without turning them into tools of manipulation. Be someone who can say, "I'm hurt, I'm disappointed, but I still want to understand you." That's not just how you preserve a relationship, it's how you preserve the respect others have for you. 3. Blaming others when you refuse to own your life. There's a type of person you'll meet everywhere at work, in love, or staring back at you in the mirror. The one who always has an excuse. If they fail to complete a task, it's because their co-workers didn't help. If they're unhappy, it's because their partner didn't care enough. If they fail, it's because the circumstances were against them. And if you offer feedback, they'll say, "I know, but..." Nothing erodes trust faster than the refusal to take responsibility. Nothing makes you look smaller in the eyes of others than constantly deflecting your role in the outcomes unfolding. I once worked with a boss who was excellent at blaming others. Every time the team missed a KPI, he would name everyone's mistakes. When upper management gave feedback, he'd blame the market, the weather, luck, even unstable consumer psychology. Never once did I hear him say, "I need to do better." And over time, no one respected him, not because he lacked skill, but because he lacked accountability. A person who never owns their part in failure will never be fit to lead success. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If I caused it, then I must correct it. If I didn't, I still get to choose my response." At the heart of that idea lies this. Responsibility isn't a punishment. It's the privilege of someone with inner sovereignty. When you choose to take responsibility, you declare, "I have the power to fix it. I have the power to change. I have the power to begin again." But when you blame, you abandon that and surrender your life into someone else's hands. Why do we blame? Maybe because it's easier than looking within. Maybe because it offers brief relief from pain. Maybe because we were raised in a culture where failure is seen as shameful, so our instinct is to reject it. But whatever the reason, the result is always the same. We rob ourselves of the chance to grow. Stoicism doesn't teach us to stubbornly shoulder all guilt. It teaches us to face the truth. And the truth is, most of what happens in our lives stems from our own choices. Choosing not to speak up, choosing not to plan, choosing to accept what we know is wrong, and afterward, choosing to blame as if we were helpless victims. Epictetus once said, "You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails." Life will throw shocks, losses, and events we never asked for, but we can always choose our response, our attitude. When you blame, you refuse to take the wheel of your own ship. You drift, and over time that ship will crash, stray off course, or worse, rot in the harbor of procrastination. I remember a friend smart, full of ideas, but never started his business. His reasons were always the same. The market's unstable, policies are unclear, I don't have capital. But the truth is, he never even tried because he was afraid to fail. And to protect his ego, he built a fortress of logic to explain why now isn't the time. Today, he's still working at a company he doesn't believe in, still blaming the world for not giving him a chance. But opportunity was never missing. He just refused to take responsibility for his dream. A trustworthy person isn't someone who's always right. It's someone who admits when they're wrong and is willing to correct it. Owning your mistakes doesn't weaken your image, it strengthens it. Because in a world full of blame and excuses, the person who steps up and claims their part is rare and worth admiring. So next time you face failure or conflict, ask yourself, what part of this is mine? No matter how small, own it. Because only when you own it can you change it. And only when you change it can you live as a mature human being, not one who blames, but one who leads. As Seneca once said, "It's not because things are difficult that we don't dare, it's because we don't dare that things are difficult." Avoiding responsibility doesn't make life lighter, it just makes you weaker. But when you're willing to carry your part, you don't just earn others' respect, you give yourself a reason to hold your head high. 4. Neglecting personal hygiene. When you show you don't respect yourself, no one wants to talk about this. It feels too personal, too delicate, and yet it's something everyone notices even if they never say a word. Personal hygiene. Uncombed hair, a wrinkled shirt, a faint odor during a meeting. No one says anything, but everyone quietly pulls away. I once met a brilliant man, deep knowledge, engaging presence, but he often came to class with muddy shoes, untrimmed nails, and an unwashed coat. No one confronted him, but each time he raised his hand to speak, the room would go quiet in a different way, not out of admiration, but discomfort. His words still made sense, but they no longer resonated. His credibility wasn't lost due to intellect, but because his presence failed to create a sense of safety. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your soul is dyed by the thoughts you hold, and your appearance is its truest reflection." In Stoicism, neatness isn't about vanity, it's a reflection of discipline. The way you treat your body is how you train your mind. And when you ignore yourself each morning, skipping a wash, leaving your shirt unkempt, avoiding the mirror, you're silently telling yourself, "I'm not worth the care." You might think, "I don't care about appearances." But personal hygiene isn't about appearance. It's about self-respect. A person who keeps themselves clean, tidy, and fresh isn't trying to impress, they're simply choosing to live with clarity, order, and alertness. Stoicism doesn't ask us to become slaves to image. But it also doesn't excuse sloppiness, because every small detail is an action, and every action shapes the person you become. Epictetus once said, "Each morning, prepare yourself as if for battle, not to fight others, but to not be defeated by yourself." Brushing your teeth, washing your face, ironing your clothes. These are your first weapons if you wish to live intentionally to create order from within. No one stays sharp living in a tired, disheveled body. Picture yourself walking into an interview. You might say the smartest things, offer the best strategies, but if your shoes are dusty, your collar stained, and there's an unpleasant smell, everything you say will be drowned out by the discomfort you cause, not because they're judgmental, but because human instinct responds strongly to environment. And your body is the first environment you present to the world. Some people dismiss this with, "I'm too busy." But a shower, a shave, brushing your teeth, these take 15 minutes a day, not 5 hours. And if you can't spare 15 minutes to care for the body carrying you through life, the problem isn't your schedule, it's your values. Cleanliness won't make you a genius, but neglect will surely destroy the image of someone worth listening to. In social spaces, the well-groomed person isn't the richest or the most attractive, but often the most trusted, because they show, "I know how to manage myself." And if they can manage themselves, they might also manage responsibilities, promises, and tasks with care. My perspective changed while living with a roommate. Each morning, even on days off, he'd wake up early, shave, spritz a bit of cologne, and wear a clean t-shirt. I once asked why, and he simply said, "Because I want to start my day by respecting myself." That stuck with me. Not because it sounded poetic, but because it was true. Deeply true. You can live simply, wear cheap clothes, skip the makeup and fashion trends. But being clean, neat, and fresh, that's not a luxury. That's a sign of awareness. And awareness is where maturity begins. So the next time your life feels chaotic, your mind cluttered, and your confidence shaken, don't rush to seek some lofty philosophy. Start by washing your hair, trimming your nails, and ironing that wrinkled shirt. Not to change the world, but to remind yourself, "I deserve kindness from me." Seneca once said, "A man cannot be refined if he avoids friction." And sometimes that friction begins with a towel, a razor, and a stick of deodorant. Nothing is small when done with full presence. 5. Constant complaining, when you make yourself the victim of everything. Some people walk into a room and bring positive energy. Others enter and it feels as if the sky has dimmed a little. Not because they yell, not because they're visibly upset, but because they complain endlessly about the weather, the traffic, their co-workers, their families, society, life in general. Everything is always a problem. Everything is against them, and somehow they are always the ones suffering. At first, others will listen, empathize, even share in it. But eventually, the repetition becomes exhausting. No one wants to deal with someone who always sees life as unfair. No one wants to stay close to someone who leaves them feeling heavy after every conversation. Gradually, people pull away not from a lack of compassion, but out of a need to protect their own balance. Complaining is the fastest painkiller for helplessness, but like all painkillers when overused, it dulls awareness. You stop seeing what's right. You only see yourself as a victim and the world as your enemy. Each morning you wear the armor of resentment and view everything through the lens of, "It should have been different." Stoicism doesn't dismiss sadness or dissatisfaction, but it teaches us this: reaction is a choice. Epictetus once said, "It's not things themselves that trouble us, but our opinions about them." You might get stuck in traffic, betrayed or treated unfairly by society. But if you choose to replay those things 10 times a day in your mind, then it's not life that's punishing you. It's you doing it to yourself. Complaining is not a dialogue. It's a monologue. And people will only listen for so long before they start to feel, "Being around this person is making me negative too." As a natural act of self-preservation, they'll slowly distance themselves. No arguments, no confrontations, just silence and space. I've been there during long stretches of exhaustion. I began to complain about work, about family, about pressure. My friends offered comfort at first, but over time the meetups dwindled. Messages took longer to be answered. One close friend told me, "I care about you, but every time we talk, I feel like I carry your heaviness home with me." That didn't make me angry. It woke me up. It woke me up to the fact that complaining doesn't release pain. It multiplies it. And if you can't control what you say, you're spreading negativity across your life, like a farmer scattering rotten seeds across his own field of hope. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your life is shaped by the thoughts you repeat every day." And if those thoughts are, "I'm unlucky, I suffer, everything is terrible," then you are programming your brain to live in a permanent state of victimhood. The most dangerous thing isn't that others lose respect for you. It's that you lose respect for yourself. Because you start to believe that you can't change anything. You blame everything else. And in doing so, you reject your inner power, the power to choose your response, to act, to take ownership of your attitude. Stoicism doesn't tell you to fake positivity. It simply reminds you, complaining is not a solution. The solution is acceptance or action. If you can change something, start. If you can't, let it go and redirect your energy elsewhere. But sitting in between and whining will only make you more exhausted and drag down the very people you love. Ask yourself, the last time I complained, what was I really hoping for? Sympathy, attention, or was it just habit? And after that complaint, did anything improve? Or was everything the same except my mood was a little worse? Choose different words to describe your life. Don't say tired every day. Don't start every story with, "and now this happened too." Instead, try saying, "I'm learning to be more patient," or "today brought an interesting challenge." It may sound like denial, but in truth, it's training the mind. And the Stoic understands, the mind isn't strong by nature. It's strengthened by how we speak to others and to ourselves. If you want to be respected, don't be the one always finding fault with the world. Be the one who sees the fault, accepts it, and seeks the way forward. Because in the eyes of others, the one who keeps walking quietly, calmly, is the one they look up to, not because they complain less, but because they live more honestly, with more control and enough strength to stay silent when life doesn't go their way. 6. Chronic lateness, when you quietly say, "My time matters more than yours." You walk into the meeting room 10 minutes late. Everyone smiles politely, remains courteous, but something has shifted in their gaze. No one scolds you, no one reacts harshly, but in that silence, something has been recorded. You don't respect other people's time. Being late when it's rare and has a valid reason is something most people can forgive. But when it becomes a habit, being late to meetings, postponing calls, dragging things out due to lack of preparation, it stops being about time management. It becomes a silent statement. My time matters more than yours. And no one respects someone who carries that attitude. Stoicism teaches us every moment is part of life, and life doesn't come with spare time. Seneca once wrote, "It's not that we have too little time, but that we waste so much of it on meaningless things." And among those things, being late even by a few minutes is a meaningless act with massive consequences. Not just for plans, but for credibility. I once worked with someone incredibly talented, but he was never on time. The meeting was at 10 a.m. He'd show up at 10:15. The deadline was Friday. He'd sent it Monday morning. No one said anything, but gradually, no one gave him the important tasks. Not because he lacked skill, but because no one wanted to be tied to someone who didn't keep his word on time. What earns people's respect isn't how many meetings you have, how busy your schedule is, or how much you have going on. It's whether you keep your word, even when that word is simply, "I'll be on time." When you show up on time, you send a clear message. I respect you. I value your time as much as mine. And the beautiful thing is, others will begin to respect you more, not because you're early, but because you live with discipline, commitment, and responsibility. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't waste time arguing about what a good person should be one." Sometimes, showing up on time is a silent proof of character you don't need to explain. Your punctuality speaks for itself. And that one promise, the simplest one, becomes the foundation of every strong relationship in life. Remember, everyone is busy. Everyone has their own schedules, their own chaos, their own surprises. But the one who prepares, organizes, and adjusts to be on time is someone who lives with responsibility, both to themselves and others. If you're often late, don't just say, "I need to try harder." Ask yourself, what am I really prioritizing? Do I think my time is so precious that others should wait for me? That question, if answered honestly, can transform how you see time. Not out of shame, but because you understand. Being late is the visible symptom of a life lacking control. And the Stoic, above all, is someone who has mastered the self not just in thought, but in every small action, including being on time. 7. Making excuses when you choose safety over growth. We all know that feeling when there's something we need to do, a goal to reach, a conversation to face. But instead of acting, we start finding reasons. I'm not ready. Now isn't the right time. I need more time. The more reasonable the excuse sounds, the more comforted we feel. But the truth is, every excuse, no matter how well crafted, is nothing more than a shield for one thing: fear. Excuses are a subtle form of self-defense. They help us avoid the feeling of failure, avoid judgment from others, and avoid confronting our own procrastination. But the price is steep, because every time we make an excuse, we give up a chance to grow. And if repeated often enough, we don't just delay action, we delay our entire life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Remember this, and you will find strength." The person who makes excuses has forgotten this. They believe they need to wait just a little longer until things are more perfect. But the perfect moment never exists, and opportunity doesn't wait. It's just you either stepping forward or telling the same old story. I was going to, but I once coached a young man with great intelligence. He wanted to start a business. He had the idea, the talent, the passion, but each week when I asked, "When will you begin?" he had a new reason. "I'm still learning. I don't have enough capital. I want to find the right partner." Every reason made sense, but after 6 months, nothing had changed. I asked him directly, "What are you afraid of?" And he fell silent. Because deep down he knew. The only thing holding him back was himself. Stoicism doesn't encourage us to rush into everything unprepared, but it teaches us that growth means acting even while afraid, committing to progress even without all the answers. Epictetus once said, "Not moving forward is falling behind." And in truth, making excuses is the most discreet kind of retreat. It doesn't knock you down, but quietly keeps you stuck until you no longer believe you can move at all. The real danger is this: excuses don't just affect results. They erode self-respect. Every time you say, "I'll do it, just not yet," And then don't you teach yourself that your word doesn't matter. And when you no longer trust your own word, neither will anyone else. The Stoic understands. Action doesn't require perfection, only honesty. Honesty with reality, and honesty with oneself. If you haven't done something, don't make excuses. Say instead, I'm afraid. I lack discipline. I haven't prioritized it yet. Only when you dare to name the truth can you begin to change it. Look back at your life. Is there something you still haven't started? A hard conversation, a long-held plan, a habit you know would help but haven't built yet. And each time it comes to mind, do you find a perfectly logical reason to take one more step back? If so, remember this. Excuses don't spare you from hardship. They only prolong regret, and nothing is more exhausting than living day after day knowing you could have been more but never dared to begin. I don't believe respect is something you can force others to give you. It doesn't lie in words, titles, or status. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is watching and the small choices you repeat each day. Habits shape behavior. Behavior molds character, and it's character that quietly earns the deepest kind of respect without needing to boast, without needing to demand. We've all gossiped, made excuses, shown up late. But the question isn't, how many times have I been wrong? It's, do I have the courage not to repeat it ever again? Because being an adult isn't about never making mistakes, it's about facing your own mistakes without looking away. In a noisy world, the one who quietly remains kind is the one people are drawn to. And sometimes, just by living with principle, the world will know exactly how to treat you. If this video made you reflect even just on one behavior, one decision, or one moment you once overlooked, then that's already progress. Because change begins with awareness, and only those brave enough to look at themselves honestly can truly grow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next video. And remember, you don't need to be perfect to be respected. You only need to live truthfully with clarity, responsibility, and a quiet presence that makes others feel safe around you. See you in the next video.